The Mopar Muscle Truck is back. This is my 1974 Dodge D100 stepside. It's been an ongoing project and a bunch of episodes, usually accumulating in a blown-up small block. Ever since I was a little kid, I just always loved this generation of Dodge trucks, especially the short bed stepside. To me, it was just the quintessential street machine truck, and I've always loved them. And I ran into this thing at the wrecking yard. It was missing a lot of the interior. It's bare up to the firewall, but it had an engine and transmission, and it was a stick. And for $900, it was mine. Now, I got it running in a couple of different configurations. Basically, it was a small block truck. It had a 318. I took that out. Then I put another small block, a 360, and then a 408, and back to a 318. And funny thing is, every single one of those engines ended up blown up in pits. So this time, I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to put a Gen III Hemi and make it a little higher tech than normal by going with the fuel injection, the 6-speed manual transmission, and just build it up really nice. It was over a year ago, and myself, Wiley, and Birdsong began building the engine and test fitting it into the truck, but we were unable to get the thing completed due to parts availability issues at the time. So unfortunately, it's been sitting and waiting. But that's given me time to rebuild all of the suspension and steering components, which should make a world of difference in the way it handles. But it's been off the road for over 2 years now, and it's time to finish this thing off and get it all back and running and driving with the Gen III Hemi and a 6-speed manual transmission. My goal is to make all of that happen by the end of the week with the help of Freiburger and Birdsong. We'll see if we can put it all together and make the machine of my dreams. The engine that we're putting in is a Gen III Hemi that I rebuilt myself. It started off as a 347 cubic inch engine, but now it's been stroked to 392 cubic inches. It's got eagle heads that are fully ported by BES racing engines. It's got Wiseco pistons, a custom comp cam that I helped design the specs on, and we're going to install it with a Holley high ram intake, a Holley throttle body, and set it all up with their Terminator X EFI. The transmission is a stock 60/60 6-speed, which would have come in a late model Challenger. That's going to replace the overdrive 4-speed that I had in it previously, and it should give me extra gear and better ratios for cruising and still hold up plenty well on the drag strip. We've got a lot of work to do to get this done by the end of the week, and I've still got to finish off the engine before we can drop it in. So Birdsong's going to start working on the fuel delivery, and Freiburger's going to get the front accessory drive together before we tackle everything else. Man, it's storming cats and dogs outside, but David's still able to concentrate on reading the instructions here for the front accessory drive. I'm going to replace the head bolts because I've got to make a confession. These are torque-to-yield fasteners. That means they're one-time use, and I've used these at least 5 times. So I'm taking that all out. I'm going to replace those torque-to-yield fasteners with ARP studs, which is going to be way better for clamping the head to the block.
Well, I was assigned to put the accessory drive on the front of the Gen III Hemi. Unfortunately, Steve got a kit for a variable valve timing engine, and this is actually an earlier non-variable valve timing engine. I'll explain the difference once we get the right parts and I get into that. So what I'm gonna do is start to install all of the wiring for our Holley Terminator X. This is gonna be our EFI controller for this whole shebang. So I think mounting this is the least of my troubles. Getting all of this through the firewall is gonna be the fun. So I'm gonna go work on that. Okay, second wad. There's a whole lot more to come.
Oh, there's more than that?
Oh, a ton.
Let's see if this clicks. The intake manifold I have here is called the Holley High Ram. I think they named it that because of the way it is. Look right there. Boom, just like that. It's got an O-ring seal that's going to give you no gasket blowout potential and an oil-proof seal that'll last a lifetime. What I did here is I put a little bit of grease right in the channel where the O-ring material goes, because otherwise it'll just fall out of position. Here I have the top half of the high ram, and it's got a forward throttle body that bolts on the front right here. And this just has multiple fasteners to hold the two halves together.
Oh, wow, there's a lot of bolts.
Well, it takes 1, 2, more than 2.
You didn't put any anti-seize on these? You know, 30 years from now, you're gonna be wishing you had anti-seize on
And you
these.
think this thing's gonna stay together for 30 years?
No. That was like a 4-cylinder clap.
No, it needs to be a Hemi clap.
Oh, and we missed.
The finishing touch right here on the top of the motor is going to be the valve covers. These are OEM. They're brand new from Chrysler because I swapped to the Eagle head, which is a later head than the engine originally came with, and they're not interchangeable. So these match the heads. Much more to do there. It's all bolted on. What we have here are Accel 61 pound-per-hour injectors. That should be sufficient fuel. And there's really nice fuel rails from Holley. They just bolt right on. That's all there is to it. I feel like we've got a lot done today, but we're still a long way from dropping this Hemi in.
Bam! All of a sudden, the Gen 3 Hemi looks awesome with this Holley high ram on it.
Yeah, I'm keeping it nice by doing a good job with the harness and routing it all super clean.
Well, that was the discussion I was going to have with you.
Why?
Yeah.
What?
Because this is sort of a comeback of the Roadkill Garage zip tie moment. Look how Steve is putting the harness on here, and unfortunately...
Unfortunately, it's nice.
No!
Why?
He has got one zip tie wrapped this way,
Yeah.
and the other one wrapped this way. And so
No.
therefore the heads of them are in two different places.
Oh.
That's unacceptable. That is weak. If you're gonna use zip ties, you gotta wrap them all the same direction and hopefully make it so that you can actually tie the head of them up underneath
How did
like
that happen? I'm humiliated, Freiburger.
I know.
I'm walking away from that.
I'll just go fix this for him.
What I have is a universal fit Summit radiator. It's not that big, but I think it's gonna be big enough. It's a cross flow and it's aluminum. To make it fit, I'm gonna have to make some brackets that are gonna correspond with the factory mounting points, and it'll bolt right in. That's a perfect fit. I have my radiator adaptive brackets all fabbed up, and I've got them clamped in position. Now, to attach them, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use rivets. So I've got this riveting kit, and it's really simple to use rivets because you don't have nuts and bolts and all that mess. You just drill a hole like so. And then, in case you've never done it, you take a rivet like this one here, and just stick it in the hole, and just put that in there, squeeze it, and boom. And that's not gonna go anywhere.
Hey, Steve, you have info on how to put this seal on?
I just kind of push it a little bit with the screwdriver.
Nailed it.
Normally we would put the front cover on first, but we don't have that part. We're waiting for that to get shipped out. So gonna take the oil pan off, which is mocked up without a gasket, and put gaskets in, bolt up everything else except for the few bolts up in the front that go to the timing cover, and we're gonna have a lot of progress done. One of the nice things about the Hemi is the plugs are right at the top, making them easy to get to once the engine's in the car. But the thing about the Gen 3 Hemi is you have 2 plugs per cylinder, so I had to get 16 because there's 2 times 8 cylinders of these NGK iridium plugs. The iridiums are kind of premium plugs, and that's a rare earth metal, but what it does is it lasts a really long time. And when you have 16 plugs to change and they're way down in the hole, you really don't want to do it very often. So I got these MSD coils, and they're purported to be higher energy than stock. There's no spark plug wires or anything to melt, which is another nice feature of the Gen III Hemi. Yeah, I'll just run them down with this impact. I'll go get my torque wrench, and I'll get these tightened to spec. Sometimes when you're working on a really nice engine that's pretty high-tech, you might have to improvise anyway because you'll find something that's a problem, which we did when it came time to install the pilot bushing in the back of the crankshaft. It was supposed to be a press fit, but it turned out to be a few thousandths loose in there. So what do? I'm going to knurl the OD of the pilot bushing, and I'm going to do that using a punch and a hammer. Just dimpling it all the way around, that's going to put a raised edge on it. I'm going to put a lot of dimples in there. It's about 3 thousandths off. That'll give me the interference fit that I need, and I'll Loctite it in, and it'll be just fine. I don't really usually like to glue in the pilot bearing, but it will still have a pretty good press. How do you like it?
It looks like a pilot bearing in a crankshaft.
It's tight.
What's next?
One thing I hate, and I tell you, I really do despise it, is burning up clutches. And believe me, I've burned up more than my fair share in this truck right here behind me. So when it came time to get a clutch for my new Hemi swap, I just pulled out the stops and got the good stuff. Starting out right here at the engine side, I've got an aluminum flywheel. That's lighter weight than the steel flywheel, and because of the configuration of the flywheel with this transmission, you can see it's a really deep member, so the iron one weighs a ton. So there, that solves that problem. Now over here, I like the puck-style clutches, and I've got not one, but 2 puck-style clutch discs. This is a dual-disc clutch, and you can see the diameter is a little bit reduced from your normal heavy-duty clutch. That cuts down on the rotating inertia by quite a bit, and that's going to help me shift this thing at really high RPM. Now we've got the cover here. Again, this is an aluminum cover, lightweight, less inertia, and it's a diaphragm style. That lessens the amount of pedal effort for the clamping load. Now, the manufacturer, when I ordered this, is a spec clutch, and he told me, well, man, that's overkill for an NA Hemi engine, even a nicely built Gen 3. But I said, look, I want the 1,000 horsepower plus clutch, and he said, okay, you want it, I'll sell it to you. So I paid up, and here it is. And pretty soon you won't see it because it's going to be right here in my truck.
I'm finally ready to install the front engine accessory drive. This is all a kit from Holley, and honestly, one of the things that has made these Gen 3 Hemis feasible for swaps into stuff like 74 D100s or muscle cars or anything is the fact that Holley embrace these things, and they make motor mounts, headers, intake manifolds, EFI stuff, and these accessory drives so that you can swap them into older cars and have less of a mess than dealing with junkyard stuff. It turns out that there is one front cover that is for non-VVT engines, and then another later one that is for the variable valve timing engines, and I had the wrong parts and mixed up. Now it's all solved, so I'm gonna be able to bolt this whole thing together. It's gonna be a front cover that is going to hold the air conditioning and the power steering pump and the alternator, and of course the water pump. Sometimes these cordless tools, the smell of them reminds me of slot cars when I was a kid. It's as close to an EV as I ever want to get. This one goes TDC, right there. And the Holley 150 amp alternator. Dulcich won't know what to do with all the power. This is going to be a wrap on the whole Holley front accessory drive. Right, I think we're going to bolt the transmission on this thing and dump it in the truck.
What we have here is a TR6060 transmission. It's made by Tremec, and it's OEM in late model Challengers. It's a 6-speed manual. This particular unit I bought off Birdsong like 2 years ago. I think it came with installation, so Chris is gonna struggle with this until it goes on there.
That's the whole reason I was called in, right?
Or-
Just to install this.
Or I get my money back. The nice thing about these transmissions is the way they just slip right onto a stock Hemi because that's what they came on.
Let's put an alignment bolt in there.
Yep.
We're finally at the step of putting the transmission and engine in the truck. These guys have already test fit this in prior episodes that I wasn't here for, so theoretically this works. Yeah.
I'm picking up in the front, yeah.
Yep, okay, go down more. We're both pressing to angle it. What's wrong?
Nerve-wracking.
Really? I'm calm as a cuke.
Oh,
yeah.
think I'm getting caught on something, or? Oh yeah, the flange for the firewall.
It's good. You can go.
You can go down.
Down.
Going down. Just felt for the, okay.
Okay, now we're getting at the point where we want a jack under the trans, don't we? Yeah, down and then in. And watch the chain on the cowl.
You got room so far.
Let her down
Boom.
and home.